Welcome to the Page One Podcast, a twice-weekly podcast featuring a variety of guests and thought leaders on topics ranging from channel strategies to tariffs, influencer marketing, best-in-class product launches, and all the details about how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers, or what we call R-commerce. Now, here's your host, Luke Peters.
Thanks for joining us on the Page One Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Peters, CEO of Newer Appliances and retail brand digital strategy agency. We're now in a coronavirus world, and I know that's on everyone's mind, so I'm going to adapt all of the interviews to ensure that you listeners are getting the most out of this podcast. We're going to get right down to some key wins that you guys can implement right now in the middle of the pandemic. In this episode, you're going to learn from Aaron Zagha, CMO of Newton Baby, how they're succeeding as a self-funded company in this world of venture-backed lunacy. Aaron, thanks again for joining us on the Page One Podcast. Please give us a quick introduction.
Sure. So I am the CMO of Newton Baby. Newton was launched about 5 years ago to create the safest crib mattress on the market. It's a really innovative design. Babies can literally breathe straight through the mattress. It's unlike any other mattress on the market. And since then, we've been kind of continually in hyper growth mode, grown over 100% a year every year, now growing a lot faster than that even, and have since launched ancillary baby-related sleep products, sheets, swaddles, mattress pads, those kinds of things, and plan on continuing to expand our product lineup going forward.
Thanks for that, Aaron. And for the audience, I actually talked to Aaron previously, and I had some audio issues on my end, but Aaron is literally one of the smartest marketers that I've interviewed, so I think it's going to be a really impactful podcast here. And why don't we just dive right into it and talk about coronavirus? That's what everyone's thinking about. We're all dealing with it. Some sales are up with D2C brands. Some of them are down for various reasons. And I guess just starting with this question, if folks have to hit numbers and they're behind numbers, what are changes that they can make if they had like a shorter term, say 90-day ROI focus? And these changes more specifically would be on their direct-to-consumer website sales.
Yeah. So, I think the first thing obviously to do is lean into any channels that are working, have always worked. Anything you can do that is a proven, known channel or tactic, lean into that, obviously, goes without saying. More interestingly, perhaps, we've seen quite a bit of fluctuation in advertising rates on all of the big channels, so both on Google and Facebook. And perhaps more interestingly, even on influencers and newspaper ads and all kinds of, traditional old school channels, what I'll call, which as a digitally native D2C company, we have never even considered, just because I need to see directly attributable, measurable ROI. I don't have a $100 million brand building budget. But some of those channels are getting so cheap due to the coronavirus, so we're actually starting to consider them. Now, it would be a bit of a test still. So I don't think that that's necessarily where you want to throw 80% of your budget going forward, is to start doing TV all of a sudden. But things like influencers, even influencers which have performed well in the past for us, have started cutting rates. And so I think it's definitely worth revisiting either channels or your scale in those channels where you're seeing declining CPMs, CPCs, and seeing if you can negotiate down rates to a level that it would really help you materially scale the channel and to some degree take advantage of depressed advertising costs.
That's awesome. Now, have you seen that? So I guess like on Facebook, I've heard that advertising rates for different terms or campaigns has reduced about 15% or so. Are you seeing things along that lines, or even more, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've read all of the industry trackers, and pretty much every big agency in any of the channels is publishing one these days. And there's no question that costs to advertise to get an eyeball have fallen. I've seen estimates anywhere from 0 in some to 50%, maybe at the peak about 2-3 weeks ago. We've seen more in the 10 to 20% range, but most of the industry is saying that that's also kind of offset by a decline in conversion rate. We haven't necessarily seen that, but we kind of are very nimble, and we're constantly iterating and adjusting everything. We are not ever set it and forget it, even down to the keyword level. So we're always optimizing for conversion, and we haven't seen huge conversion hits. but we're also not exactly a purely discretionary item. If you have a baby, you have to have a crib and a mattress for them to sleep in. So we're probably a little less volatile than other more discretionary items.
Yeah, and for the audience, take a look at the Newton Baby website. It's cool. I like all your call to actions, and social proof is really strong. And you're super fortunate that you have a product that is, I mean, it's really differentiated. So you've got a really great opportunity, and you definitely have taken advantage of that. And like you said, you guys have grown massively. So you're right. People are having babies. They still want or need a product, and then you offer a really great option for them. Still though, what changes have you seen, say, in the last month or so that are different than before, maybe on the marketing or sales or just customer behavior side?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's interesting because we've seen a huge shift in conversion rates of some channels. Historically, we sold to one big brick and mortar retailer, and then our Seller Central on Amazon, and then our direct consumer site. And so what we have seen is a very significant change in conversion rate mix among those channels, where for somewhat obvious reasons, the brick and mortar channel has basically gone to zero. And both our direct site and Amazon are seeing big surges in conversion rate. So those channels are actually up in conversion rate. But again, it's really just change in channel mix due to the virus and where people do and don't want to shop. And frankly, that's one of the reasons we've always been to some degree omnichannel. I believe very strongly in meeting the customer wherever they want to shop. But this really calls out why you really sort of have to be, because if you're wholesale only and all the stores that carry you shut, you're out of business.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is going to, speed up the transition to online. A lot of people, just customer behaviors are going to get used to this, and it just makes it more important now than ever. And it's funny. I mean, I've been going to eTail, the conference over in Palm Desert, forever, and Omnichannel was a buzzword probably almost 10 years ago, at least 7 or 8 years ago. And, but some people haven't made the move. So you're absolutely right. You've got to be there. You got to be where the customer is. So it's a great point. Aaron, go ahead and, if you don't mind, quickly break down a little bit about the company. I'm sure the audience is interested in kind of hearing, size, number of employees, any footprint you guys might have, just to give a little scale on or some context on the company.
Yeah, we don't really disclose sales, but in terms of employees, it's about 15 full-time people, or the equivalent of that. We use a lot of agencies and outside people and a couple of part-time people as well. But it's pretty much about 15 of us full-time focused on the Newton Baby business. Got
it. And where's the HQ located? I think that was back east.
Yeah, headquarters is actually in New York. I work remotely in LA, but I'm back there often. And right now there is no headquarters. So
yeah, everybody's remote.
Yeah.
Cool. And then why don't we talk about, I guess before we move on, because we'll dive into more on D2C and how you can succeed there. But why don't we start with like tools and publications? Just bring it up because earlier you're talking about you stay up to date on the most recent information, and it would be interesting to find out, where you like to get that good information, and also maybe what tools you use, like SCM Rush or anything like that helps you run your business.
Yeah. So the most important tools for us are obviously analytics. And we use a combination of good old Google Analytics and Rockerbox, which is a multi-touch attribution vendor. Rockerbox is awesome. I really like them. They are like 1/5 the price of most of the big attribution companies. And they're young and nimble and really helpful and smart. So those are the two that I use constantly in terms of monitoring our own business. In terms of industry-wide stuff, I'm on the email distribution list of every single agency and vendor on earth as a result of having gone to eTail many years.
Oh, that's funny.
And I think they share details, but some are better than others. Some vendors publish really good thought pieces. Almost all of the big agencies right now are publishing what they're seeing on an aggregate basis with respect to trends due to COVID. And that data has been pretty interesting, even though it doesn't really apply to us. Even at the category level, we haven't found the data to be highly correlated with our own experience. But knowing what's going on in the industry certainly helps inform, say, how we're going to negotiate with the big influencer. And the fact that influencer spend has gone down, to zero in a lot of brands' cases, but probably 50% on average, we've been able to negotiate down influencer rates pretty successfully.
Wow. And how are you acquiring those influencers? Are you using some sort of marketplace tool, or is it a different way to acquire them or get a hold of them?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first started, the company was using a platform, and we found pretty quickly that it wasn't working well. And I think there's a lot of different reasons why. I don't think we were using it all that well, and we weren't very sophisticated in who we were accepting or reaching out to. It's such a nebulous, murky industry to start with, and there's very, very little good data, and there's really no data whatsoever on any platform with respect to how effective any given influencer is at driving actual sales. So we shifted quite a bit, and now influencers it's one of our top channels from a traffic perspective, not from a sales perspective, but it's more top of funnel for us. And we deploy it 4 different ways, I think. So we work closely with an agency who handles our larger influencers that get paid and paid pretty well. And they're a really awesome, interesting agency. They only work with influencers who have been proven for their other brands that they represent to drive real sales on an ROI positive basis. And they really run it like a performance channel. They're the only ones I've ever heard of that really works that way. And when they stop seeing an influencer perform, they'll just cut them from their rank. So that's kind of how we handle the larger influencers. Any influencer that reaches out to us directly, we handle in-house. We do handle some influencers through ShareASale in the affiliate channel. So if an influencer is willing and perhaps even eager to work on a rev share basis, I am more than happy to do that always. And then the last way that we're about to launch is we're going to actually hire another agency to do micro influencers at scale. And the goal of that won't necessarily be as much directly performance related, but more of a content play so we can get some more UGC for use in our ads and other things. So 4 channels to handle one, meta channel, which we'll call influencer.
Yeah. And you talk about UGC. So are these going to be mainly Instagram influencers or using YouTube, or like what's the main channel and what type of content are you getting out of it? Yeah.
So historically it's been mostly Instagram. We have been doing more and more YouTube. We're looking into Pinterest influencers, which is kind of interesting. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be a new one for us. And one of the channels that is directly being affected by COVID is podcasts. People are not listening to podcasts because they are not driving. And so podcast rates have gone down significantly. And so I think we're going to give it a test. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And have seen that trend. Exactly. There's so many changes that happen when people work at home. Obviously on the macro, you have less oil and gas usage. But yeah, there you go. Less podcasts, less time in the car. And that's there's so many other effects. It's going to be so interesting a couple of years from now when all these studies are done and, what happened during this time period. And I'm sure there's things we're not even thinking about. But very interesting on your influencer side. And I think you talked about ShareASale. Can you tell me more about that and what that website's about?
Yeah, it's just an affiliate platform, much like Rakuten or Commission Junction or Impact Radius. And all they do is help track revenue share deals. So a publisher signs up on there and brands sign up, and brands make offers, and they say, if you write about us or drive traffic to our site, we'll pay you a commission. And a third party like ShareASale or Commission Junction tracks all of that and makes sure that there's no kind of abuse in there. So it's really just a platform to help find people to publicize your site.
Got it. I mean, is it any different?
And then pay them.
Is it any different or better or more specialized than Commission Junction or CJ? I mean, that's usually the one that we've had a lot of experience with in the past with affiliates, but this sounds a little different, or is it kind of the same thing?
No, they're all the same.
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, there's ins and outs, and some are better at some publishers or some different kinds of verticals than others. ShareASale is really easy and user friendly, although it's probably less suited for giant programs. Our program's pretty small. We don't work with coupon sites, which tend to be the vast majority of publishers on all these affiliate channels.
Exactly.
So it's not as big of a deal for us.
By the way, on that note, because this is, you're like the king of attribution. So maybe you could answer this is like,
thank you.
Yeah. How do I form this question? This is like the question that nobody can seem to really answer, and that is about affiliates. So why don't we kind of dive down that rabbit hole? Because maybe you have the answer, but I'll pose the question like this. A lot of companies have no clue if these affiliates are actually profitable. And sometimes they can't even believe the data that's coming to them because GA will show one thing, the affiliates will say one thing, maybe another analytics tool will actually say, they actually contributed less dollars. And so there's there's been this mistrust, at least, in folks that I've talked to. What is that one of the reasons you've pulled away from? Well, there's other reasons to pull away from the coupon sites, I bet. But what are your overall thoughts just on affiliates in general? It definitely is a murky area.
Yeah, I think you need to really split it out into the coupon sites and the content sites. Depending on your vertical and whether you sell wholesale or direct consumer, the coupon sites may or may not add value. So I think I was at a conference, and someone from one of the sporting goods companies this is a sporting good retailer, so they didn't have their own brands. They sold, the same sporting good brands that everyone else does. And they were saying that they did a really extensive lift test. And that's, I think, the only real way to tell if there's value. But they did a lift test and they shut off all the coupon sites for a month and they turned them back on. And then what they saw was that they definitely did drive significant incremental business. So, I think short of doing a massive lift test or having a multi-touch attribution vendor that's really good, it's very hard to tell whether or not these guys are driving value. Now, for us, it's a little different because we are the only ones selling our product. No one else sells our product. It's not like if you don't like the price on our site, you're going to go look for a coupon code and then buy it from Walmart. So coupons just aren't really nearly as relevant. We do still use coupon codes sometimes, and they get on the coupon sites, and that's annoying, but we don't pay for those. So it's not the end of the world. We're much more interested in using the affiliate networks to find publishers who will write real content that's actually helpful and useful. Things, comparing us to other products, long form analyses of, why we're differentiated than other crib mattresses or whatever it happens to be. And that's real content and that has value. And there's no question that that's educating customers. We actually did a poll recently to ask people why they purchased our crib mattress. And a surprisingly high number said that they turned to online review sites. And that we had Amazon reviews as a whole separate choice. And so what we found, at least this is self-reported, that people said they turned to those, top 10 mattresses available right now, those kinds of content sites slightly more often than Amazon reviews, which was interesting. And those sites are all affiliates. So There's no question that people are actually using those kinds of content publishers in their decision process and therefore driving value as long as, you get well reviewed. But those guys were happy to pay a commission to.
Wow. And actually, I got a couple questions in there, and you do a great job of making differentiating the options. So for brands that sell direct to consumer, but then also wholesale, your comment's interesting. You're saying there may be some value on the coupon sites because, they'll go to the brand, then they may go to a large retailer, but then they may also kind of coupon shop and come back to the brand. And that's where the brand can kind of win more sales than they would have had without a coupon. It sounds like that's the logic on that one.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never really been in that position. I have in a previous life, I worked at Teleflora, the big online flower company. And for us, the coupon affiliates were really important because people don't care where they buy flowers from. It's unbranded, more or less a commodity. And so they just want the best deal. And if you weren't there on the coupon sites, you would lose meaningful business. And so there was no question they drove incremental value. So it really just depends.
Yep. And then back to the content sites. I 100% agree with you. Some of those online review sites are really powerful, and some of them are moving to YouTube, by the way. So they're creating content all over. What's been your typical way that those deals have been negotiated? Are they percent of, is it a rev share, or have they sometimes even had to be one-time payments or a combination of both?
Yeah, so the ones that we work with are all rev share. But if you want kind of preferred, so almost all of them also, in addition to creating the content, have paid placements too. And those paid placements are, they'll feature your review in an email to all their subscribers, or, they'll run banners on the site, or they'll feature you in a giveaway, or they'll post social about their review of you. So those things often are paid placements. We don't typically do a ton of them unless we know that they're going to work. And I guess you never know something's going to work. But, I'm always talking to other CMOs at related companies in the baby space and networking and talking to affiliate managers. And if we hear that one site, Mother's Day giveaway performs insanely well always, then we'll go ahead and do that. but typically we don't do a ton of those just because we haven't seen or heard about them ROIing typically.
Great. That's all. I mean, this is really like tangible, useful affiliate information and stuff that I've taken notes on and definitely will take a look at. Let's talk about partner marketing. I think, are you involved in any partner marketing?
Yeah, we do some. So we love, as a single product company, really, I mean, that's starting to change as we expand our lineup, but we only have one thing to sell to a customer. So the question is, are there ways to partner with other companies who sell complementary products and create a better customer experience so that they can find the safest baby monitor in addition to the safest crib mattress? So we do often do different kinds of partnerships with other companies. And then, at some point in time, we'd love to figure out a way to better help our customers find all kinds of products. So down the road, I think there will be even more opportunities for partnerships, but we do the typical things. We'll do giveaways with other brands. We'll do cross promotion, things like that mostly. Beyond that, we don't do a ton of partnerships. Yep.
And then, at least for sure for New Era and a lot of brands, for me, email marketing is important and just growing that email list. I mean, it's still very highly engaged audience, opt-in. They're interested as long as, the messaging is done correctly and you're providing valuable content, but also, it's definitely a powerful tool for a brand to have. Talk to us about email. What have you found works? How or what is the best way to grow and acquire more emails?
Yeah, even before I joined the company, email and getting an email sign up was almost the top priority. So as a company, we've always been focused on it. And the reason why is because there's only so much you can convey in a Google ad or a display ad or whatever channel. And we don't operate in an impulse purchase industry. It's a considered product. You want to make sure you're getting the best for your baby. You're going to read some reviews. You're going to come back. And making sure that you have the email address is the best way to do that. And making sure you have a robust welcome email series is the best way to convert. So we've always prioritized email collection. We do it all kinds of different ways, and we're constantly looking for new ways to grow our email list. Giveaway has always worked pretty well, but it really varies on the quality of the other brands you're working with. If you're working with other brands or which channel. Instagram giveaways where you just have to follow a brand don't result in great lifts in your email list, for example. And then we do, these partnerships with other brands where we'll do best products of the month and hopefully get people to sign up. And we've experimented and continue to experiment with all kinds of other lead gen types of deals with content sites where effectively we're, offering something in return for a sign up on their site. So if it's a content site all about pregnancy, we'll offer a deal to the readers from that site. And some of these content sites basically have the users sign up right then and there to get a deal. So there are kind of deals like that we'll do. And then even things like Facebook lead ads where you've experimented with, they haven't worked all that well, but they're another good, easy way of scaling up your list. Really just depends on how big a prize you're offering and how well you execute a giveaway or how big a discount you offer or whatever kind of value you're offering to a customer.
Right. And a couple of questions around that. So those content sites, are those other affiliate sites or is this a whole nother category of sites that you're kind of partnering with and somehow, acquiring their users as well?
Yeah, I mean, effectively they're affiliate sites, but most of them do straight B2B lead gen deals. Most of these content sites are often like portals or big publishing sites. Some of them are pretty category focused. Some of them will have, 7 different lifestyle brands or health brands. And when you sign up for those sites, they'll often guide you through a process where you can sign up for other offers, things like that. But most of these deals we've done directly with these other content site owners. And so we'll pay, it's typically more on a cost per email basis that we pay them.
Great. And how do you find those? Is this just like Googling content sites that show up for strong keywords in your industry, or is you finding these another way?
Some of them are fairly obvious because we cross paths with them in a bunch of different ways. But most of them, I think, reach out to us, I would say. if we don't know about them all already, we've never gone and kind of searched proactively for those. They've always come to us.
Interesting.
And we'll test just about anything. So some of them work, some of them don't even come close to working. You just kind of have to test.
Yep. And then on the giveaways, that was interesting. So the Instagram lists, apparently they're not as good. What type of other giveaways? Are you talking about like an on-site giveaway to acquire emails? Is that, or is it giveaway more with partnerships in acquiring other lists?
Yeah, it's more partnerships. I mean, you can only get so many new emails when you're publicizing it to your own customers, right? Pretty much you already have their emails.
That's true.
So you have to find some new source. So whether that's Facebook ads or Instagram ads or wherever you're promoting it, Pinterest ads, whatever, or partnerships where they're promoting to their list. Those are typically the biggest ways. If your giveaway is good enough, it'll get picked up by the contest sites, and there are whole websites devoted purely to just letting people know what the best giveaways are. Those obviously don't tend to convert insanely well in terms of creating lifetime value, but they're effectively free because they're just adding publicity to what you're already doing yourself.
Yep. And then how about, are you able to talk about your content strategy? Curious from if you guys have like a content calendar, and if you have found success in blogging, and then after you invested time in that, how do you repurpose that content? If you do in fact do that, into kind of other mediums, whether they be infographics or just shorter blog posts that go out on social. How do you guys do in your content? Yeah,
our blog strategy is maybe a bit peculiar. We only blog about things that we know we can rank for. I don't really want to write a blog post about how healthy formula is versus breast milk, because there are giant formula companies that do a much better job of that, and I'll never rank for it. So even though I'm sure our followers would be interested in it, we typically won't do that, just because we do have limited resources and we can't be writing articles about everything. So we're always focused on things that we're pretty sure we can rank for. And we use the blog and content as very, very, very top of funnel, even pre-funnel. So we do the topics that we focus on a little more are earlier in the process of someone who might eventually become a customer. So more like pregnancy or even marriage. And that's for various reasons, but I think it's very cost effective that way versus someone who's currently in market. They probably aren't going to necessarily, or someone who already knows about your brand, certainly they're not going to go read a 10-page blog about your brand. If they already know about it, they're going to Google and then go buy. So we use it really top of funnel and in a very kind of resource focused way to ensure that we're not just wasting time writing blog posts and trying to get links.
That's awesome.
In terms of the content, we don't reuse it that much, especially as the advertising world and especially the click-based ad world goes shorter and shorter. I mean, 5-second videos are what's converting on Facebook these days. So there's really not an opportunity to use all that much content in there.
Yeah.
We will incorporate stuff into our email series. So that's kind of the one place that it does show up though.
So would that be the one place it gets promoted? So the content's written, it'll live on the site, it'll hopefully show up because the domain's got some strength and it starts ranking. And then as far as, external promotion, that's going to happen on email, or also are you posting this on, say, LinkedIn or Pinterest or Instagram or anywhere else to drive any other eyeballs to it? Yeah, we don't really do a ton of that. If I'm going to spend money driving someone to the site, I want to drive them to our shopping. Very smart. That's smart. Yeah, you got to look at what's actually converting, what's making more dollars or has a higher ROI. So haven't thought of it that way. That's a simple way to think about it though, and probably the right way to think about it. Talk to us quickly about, Newton chose to self-fund, and that's kind of what we led off this podcast with. And you guys have done an amazing job by growing quickly, many years in a row here. Talk to us about that decision, why it was important, and how that it probably has especially helped you right now, in this crisis we're in. Yeah. So the founder of the company has started and sold other businesses in the past. And I think is very financially savvy and very savvy in general. And he never really wanted to give up a big chunk of the company to a VC fund and he didn't want to lose control, I think, to some degree also. And frankly, from almost day one, Newton had enough success that there was an option to bootstrap and self-fund. And so
kind of just the way that it's always been run. We do receive inbound offers pretty often. We've turned all of them down. And, there are definitely times when I wish we raised $10 million that I could throw into TV ads and not really care about the ROAS, but certainly not the way that we've gone. Maybe that'll change in the future, maybe not. But the downside of all that is that we do typically have to run the business profitably. And in this day and age, I think that's become a great thing, especially given the blow-ups of some of the other VC-backed companies who are nowhere near profitability and may never be. So we've gotten somewhat lucky in that we have a sustainable business model at this point in time. But it definitely does put pressures on the things we can and can't do, and frankly, how fast we can grow. And so my task is always growing as fast as possible while maintaining, relative to most of our competitors, a ridiculously high return on ad spend. And, through pure iteration and force of will and paying a lot of attention to things like multi-touch attribution, we've been able to succeed, and hopefully we'll continue doing so. But yeah, that's the big downside of not taking outside money, is being profitable. You have to be profitable.
Yeah, it's also an upside. So I can hear all the CEOs and founders and owners listening. They're excited to hear that one, and they're saying, hey, it can be done. They'll pass that comment on to their marketing team and say, let's improve our attribution or something like that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, but frankly, it also does hurt us, because there are all kinds of vendors and agencies that I would love to work with, and when I tell them our ROAS constraints, they're like, absolutely not. So,
yeah.
It's great that we can achieve them, and we've been able to, and continue growing, triple digits. But it definitely precludes us from doing all kinds of things and working with all kinds of really good, talented agencies and vendors.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. If with a high ROAS, it's very hard to scale that oftentimes. To get to that ROAS.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely understand that. Well, listen, this has been an awesome podcast and a lot of learning. I took a bunch of notes. But before I let you go, I wanted to finish up quickly on social. Is there a specific channel? Maybe it's Instagram. You guys are working with these influencers. Curious on how important it is for the brand to grow social. You guys are obviously ROI focused, and social doesn't always contribute to ROI directly or easily measurably. How do you guys see it?
The great bane of, I think, every big marketer's life these days is the lack of any kind of third-party verification of what Facebook pixels are reporting, right? So there's just no way to really figure it out besides looking only at clicks or doing lift studies. And a lift study is great, but I don't want to turn off my biggest channel for a month and see what happens to my business. So, there's nothing more important, or let me rephrase that. There's nothing more scalable in this day and age than social. It's where, certainly given the coronavirus, everyone is spending all of their time. And it's also just the best channel from a format perspective to educate people, because people do watch videos on social. They do interact more. They talk to their friends about your products. So I think it's the most scalable. The challenge, I think, is that it's also the hardest to scale, just because it's so complicated. And specifically Facebook and Instagram, there's so many different levers, ad types, attributes, audiences, ways of targeting, lookalikes. I mean, I'm sure someone's done an analysis of how many different ways you can run an ad, and I'm sure it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions. So it's incredibly difficult to scale, but it is the most scalable. It just requires the most effort and knowledge and testing and iteration. But there's no question. I think for us, especially, social probably still has the most upside, even though we've been growing it really quickly.
That's a great way to finish this podcast up. And listen, really appreciated you coming on the show today, Aaron. Before I let you go, why don't you let listeners know how they can find you if they choose to, or learn more about your business?
Yeah, go to newtonbaby.com to see everything about the world's safest crib mattress. I think now is a great time to have a couple extra drinks tonight and maybe make a new baby that you need a mattress for in 10 months.
There you go.
I greatly appreciate it. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Aaron Zagha, Zagha.
Awesome. And we'll have all this in the show notes for the listeners. And again, I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Page One podcast sponsored by Retail Band. Hope you all stay safe. Truly appreciate your reviews on iTunes and hope you join us for the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Page One Podcast with Luke Peters. If you like our show and want to know more, check out our other segments. Also, please help us out by leaving us a rating on iTunes. Want to learn more about our commerce? Check out www.retailband.com to get more great tips and tricks on how to accelerate your e-commerce sales with the big box retailers.